Good evening and welcome to Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack. Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Hi, everyone.
Tonight we're talking with Michener Art Museum Assistant Curator Abi Lua about the historically significant tradition of creating delicate, intricate clothing from piña, a fabric made by weaving fibers extracted from pineapple leaves. This painstaking, entirely hand-done process has been practiced in the Philippines for more than 400 years. Abi first began researching the history and science of piña as an undergraduate at Bryn Mawr College, supported by the Hanna Holborn Gray Fellowship. She also worked with the piña collection at the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. Her research explored how the production and use of piña in 19th century Philippine society reflected complex nuances of race, class, and gender, and that became the subject of her honors thesis. Currently, Abi is assistant curator at the Michener Art Museum in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. She specializes in American and global craft and material culture, and her research has been supported by the Center for Material Culture Studies at the University of Delaware. Abi holds a bachelor's degree in history from a bachelor's degree in the history of art from Bryn Mawr College, and a master's in American material culture from the Winterthur Museum and the University of Delaware. Welcome to Art Talk, Abi Lua.
Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you. And welcome to all of you in the audience. Please join the conversation. We love to have your participation. Put your questions in and comments in the Q&A, and Jen will help us with that and also with the slides that she has prepared from Abi's photos. So Jen, let's go to the slides. We always like to start with images. Okay. And that's a picture of piña, obviously, and we're going to get oriented. It's gorgeous. And Abi, you're going to orient us with a little geography.
Yes, so geography is very important to piña textiles. As Laura mentioned, piña textiles are woven in the Philippines. And just to orient everyone to where the Philippines is, it is located in Southeast Asia. And I just have here outlined in red the countries that compose Southeast Asia. It's really the part of Asia that is below China in the South China Sea. So then if we go to the next slide, we'll zoom in a little closer to the Philippines. And so this is the Philippines. It is composed of 7,107 islands. And if you go to the next slide, these 7,000 plus islands are divided into 3 island groupings. And this is important for piña production, as I'll explain soon. But the top portion of the Philippines outlined in red, that is Luzon. That's the name of that region. The middle region in green is Visayas. And then the southern region in blue is Mindanao. And so piña is woven in that green region called Visayas. And then historically, in the 19th century, during really its golden period, it was sent up to be worn in provinces in the Red Islands, so Luzon. And it was also embroidered there, I should add. And so when we think of piña, it's really a very intercultural craft and also textile. And so I just want you all to have that in the back of your mind, really thinking about this multi-island movement. And then if we go to the next slide, so within that green island grouping in Visayas, piña is woven on an island, a smaller island called Panay. And so pictured here is Panay. And then I have highlighted here Aklan, which is the province highlighted below, Kalibo. So Aklan is the province where piña is currently woven, and then Kalibo is the capital of Aklan. And so currently, today, the capital of piña weaving is that province. It is a cottage industry there. But in the 19th century, the capital of piña weaving was Iloilo, which is on the southern part of Panay Island. And for my own research with piña, I was in Kalibo, the capital.
So has it died out in other areas? Or, I mean, this seems like a very small area to be weaving the national cloth, or there are
Yeah,
many different textile traditions in the Philippines, but
right.
it is sort of the representative cloth, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the way that piña has been marketed, it has been marketed as the national cloth, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight the inter-island movement, because when we think of the capital of the Philippines, which is Manila, it's in that top red region. So maybe Jen, if we could go back to previous slide. So Manila, you'll see National Capital Region. That's where the capital of the Philippines is. And so piña would get sent there in the 19th century and since then has become known or symbolic of the nation. The current national dress is a descendant of the outfit that was worn or that was made from piña. And so piña has really accrued a national symbolism to it. But really weaving since the 19th century has been on Panay Island, and if anything, it's more like the it's just shifted, like where the weaving capitals just have shifted within that island, but it's mostly been there.
Okay. All right. Well, it's nice to have in our minds an image of where we're talking about. I always find it nice to know where we are. But
Mhm.
let's look at what we're actually talking about in terms of, the fiber itself, because I'm just like, um, how do you get fiber from pineapple?
Mhm. And so, yeah, the piña is from the pineapple, and it's specifically the red Spanish pineapple. So it's red, as you can see here, and really weavers, like when I would speak to them, they really say that the fiber from this pineapple is stronger than the pineapple variety that you would eat. And so the fiber, or I guess, yes, the leaves that the fibers come from the bush of the pineapple and not the head or the crown. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see the leaves are quite long. The leaves are around a meter long, and you can see the pineapple just sticking out there. Um, But yeah, they're quite long, and um yeah, basically the first step to making piña is harvesting these leaves. But I'll say before we go into more the extraction and the threading, pineapple is not native to the Philippines. It's actually from South America, and there is a lot of myth shrouded around how the pineapple came to the Philippines. But it most likely came when Spain first began landing in the Philippines in the Visayas region. And basically, the story goes that the pineapple ended up on these ships. The sailors or the merchants or the conquistadors, they ate the pineapple, threw the crowns overboard, and they just acclimated well to the environment and the soil there. And so that is how piña came to be in the Philippines. But then basically what happened was weavers, they adapted the knowledge of weaving banana leaf fibers or extracting their leaves for piña textiles and piña leaves. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
Abby, you have some slides for us for that. Let's take a look at it.
Yes. So once the leaves have been harvested, the first step is the artisan takes those leaves and dethorns them. So the ridges of these leaves have thorns, and so she'll just first take some time to, yeah, get rid of those thorns. And then next slide. And then she begins extracting fibers. So there are two fibers that come from pineapple leaves. The first one is a coarse fiber called the washed out fiber. And then the second fiber is called the new one, which is the finest fiber. And so in this image, the artisan takes a porcelain plate sherd, and the sherd has been sanded down. And then she scrapes that first layer of cellulose off from the leaf. And so once she scrapes that down and the fibers are exposed, you can go to the next slide. She begins to extract the fibers. And so she'll do that for all the leaves, and that's the coarse fiber. So that's the first fiber. And then if we go to the next slide. And then once those fibers are extracted, to extract the finer fiber called liniwan, she takes a coconut portion or coconut shell. It sands the edge down there and then scrapes. So where the first fiber had been extracted, she scrapes with the coconut shell that same area down. And what I've been told is that you scrape it down until the leaf gets paper thin. So the leaf should be translucent. Like if you put your hand underneath the leaf, you should be able to see your fingers. So once it's that thin, you turn the leaf around and you sort of like peel the fine fiber from that leaf. So if we go to the next slide, that's yeah. So fine. That's the fine fiber. And so the artisan will also have a comb and she'll like comb the fiber to really make sure she can get all of it. But yeah, that's the fine fiber.
So do they keep the coarse and the fine fiber separate for different projects?
They do. They do.
Interesting. Okay. And is there really that big a difference in the grain of it?
When when you touch the fibers, like to me, it doesn't seem like a big difference, but when you weave it, it's huge. Like pure linuan piña is incredibly soft. All of the 19th century piña textiles are woven with pure linuan. But then nowadays, just to optimize the fiber use, they'll integrate the coarse fiber as well.
Okay, interesting. We have a little bit more process, and I just want to remind all of you who are in the audience that we'd love to have you join the conversation. Sometimes when we're in the thick of it, we think we're covering all the bases, but if we miss a little bit here or there and you want clarification, please do join us with those questions. And as we go along, if you have experience with piña, we definitely want to hear about that. So, okay, more process.
And then, so once both fibers have been extracted, the fibers are processed. And so the first step of processing is just to rinse it under running water. And the artisan will take a clamshell and just scrape the fibers of excess cellulose. Um, and then, yeah, how long does it take an artisan to extract the coarse and the fine fiber? Oh, wow. That's a good question. So actually, yes. How much fiber
Abby,
comes from one leaf? Yes.
Abby, so what we normally do is we sort of group the questions up and Jen can help us. So you don't have to feel like you stay on top of
Okay.
every question as they come in, but we do get everybody's questions and we love that you all are responsive. So maybe we can finish with this slide here and then we'll click back into the questions and keep them coming. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Um, so yes, once the fibers have been rinsed, you can go to the next slide. They are dried and bleached under the sun. So
So
they're just left out to dry.
are these the two separate grades?
Yes. So the
Okay.
darker one is the coarse fiber, and then the lighter one is the fine fiber.
Okay.
And then if you go to the next slide, and then it's all ready to be made into thread. It was I mean, it's time consuming and laborious, but really that's all that is needed for.
And I'm looking at, I can see a slight difference, but I think they're both super fine. And as a
Mhm.
weaver, the idea of how fine these are is very intimidating. And that's how you got that beautiful fine fabric at the beginning. But we did say that we would get to people's questions. So shall we do that? And Jen's going to help us with that. We ask a lot of Jen to swap from slides to questions, but she will help us keep track of them.
Okay, so Paige wanted to know how long does it take an artisan to extract the coarse and the fine fiber from a given leaf?
Oh, wow. Well, this artisan did it really quickly, like, because I was given the opportunity to do it, and I did it really slowly. I don't know what the time is like, but I mean, and I guess to answer that second question, like that, what you saw in the photo of the fibers drying, that was from 9 leaves. Um,
9 leaves.
and so you can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, because you're trying to get a whole fabric, and as we'll see coming up shortly, you're weaving whole garments from this, so you
Mhm.
need a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
So they're fast because they're experienced, but it still takes a lot of time to get enough to weave.
right.
anything. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Jen.
So this actually kind of goes into the next question. How much fiber comes from one leaf?
How much fiber? Not honestly, not a lot. It's like if I take my finger, maybe like that width or even half of it. Um, it's yeah, like as I mentioned, the fiber that you saw that was drying on the board, that was only from 9 leaves. Um, and so yeah, not too much.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of leaves to make one loom's worth, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. And keep those questions coming. Jen, there might be one in the Q&A.
Yes, there is. And I just put this back up because it seems like this is something that you've been referencing a lot.
Yes.
But Allison wanted to know, why are three different tools used? Porcelain plate, coconut, and clamshells.
So the porcelain is basically degrees of sharpness. So the porcelain plate, it's sharp but not too sharp, so it won't break the leaf to get that first fiber. And then the coconut is a little sharper, which and a little bit more precise to help. Because really, when you get the leaf to that fine of a thickness, it could break really easily. And so you want something sharp, but not like, the porcelain plate's a little heavy. And so you want a tool that is precise, and for them, it was the coconut shell. And then the clamshell, that was just another, just to it's not too sharp, but it can get the cellulose off. And really, I mean, these are materials that are available and have been available since piña was first woven. So, yeah.
Which I think in my intro I said 400 years. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes, 300 to 400.
yeah.
Right.
And Abby, when you were separating the fibers, you talk about it's easy to break them.
Mhm.
Um, did it come out whole for you?
It did, but then the leaf kept getting stuck to the fiber. And so I like really like the artisan, she could just seamlessly split the leaf from the fiber. It was uh, like pulling like when you're trying to remove nail polish from your nail without nail polish remover, it sort of felt like that for me.
Okay, right. Some of us know what that feels like. We can relate. Okay, let's see now. We've got the fiber out and it's clean and dry. What
Mhm.
happens next?
Clean and dry, it's bleached, so it has that natural ecru color, which you see here. And so from this stage, it's ready to be made into thread. Um, and so we can go to the next slide for that. So if for folks who are not familiar with how thread is made, if you like have a staple like cotton or wool, or even silk, basically those fibers need to be spun in order for it to be made into thread. And the fibers of these specific materials catch on to one another, and so they can hold, a spun shape. But for piña fiber, and other fibers like leaf fibers, hemp fibers, bast fibers, their quality, well, I guess except for linen, but um, their fiber qualities are so smooth that if you were to spin them, they'll just, unwind. And in so with piña and actually with banana leaf fibers, which is, still woven in the Philippines as well, they are hand knotted from end to end. So you can imagine it's like taking individual hairs from your head and hand knotting them, and that's how the thread is made. Um, and then I'll also emphasize that because, as you can imagine, the thread is so fine that even while weaving, preparing the loom at any stage of the weaving process, the threads will break. And so they will need to knot, like makers will need to knot the thread over and over again throughout the weaving process.
Yikes. So, that's a lot of knots that we're tying, right?
Mhm.
Because, yeah, okay. All right, Jen, are we going forward or are we doing some questions? Okay, here we got this picture. Let's take a
Yeah.
look here.
So once the thread is made, it can go onto the loom, and so there are a couple steps for that. If So if you're familiar with textiles, there's a vertical component and then there's a horizontal component. Um, when you look at a loom, there are threads that are laid straight out already for you. That is called the warp. And then there's the thread that the weaver physically weaves in and out to create that interlocked form, and that's called the weft. And so once the weavers have the thread, they prepare to make the weft threads and the warp threads. And to make the weft threads, they wind the thread onto a bobbin. And so that is what you see here. And that's really done across every textile tradition that uses a floor loom, where the bobbin and the shuttle, it goes back and forth to create the woven textile.
Right. And so when you think about it too, we've seen how fine that thread is. And now we look at this bobbin, it's been built up quite a bit. So there is a lot of time to get the amount of thread made and then put it onto the loom and then weave it across. You need a lot.
Yes.
Okay, next slide.
And so this is a warp frame. And so to calculate how much warp threads are needed to put on the loom ahead of time, weavers use a warp frame. Um, and basically, it helps weavers calculate the length that they want to weave the length that they desire to weave. And Laura, you can actually correct me, or not correct me, but inform me. Like, would you say this is a unique warp frame in your, like, have you seen a warp frame like this?
Never seen a warp
Okay,
frame like this. It's
great.
fascinating.
And it is very specific to piña. And so if you look at the center wheel, you'll see there are two spokes. And then if you look closer, you'll see that the piña threads make an X. And so you have that all throughout the wheel. So then if you go to the next slide, and then, okay, hopefully, Jen, are you able to zoom in on the presentation? Is it only, oh, okay, maybe not. That's
I
okay.
I think Zoom allows viewers to zoom in on their own screen.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so whatever device you're on, however you would normally zoom, I think you can zoom in.
Okay.
What are
Yes,
we looking at, Abby?
I invite you to zoom in. Um, so if you see those sticks, so if you see, okay, so there I am. If you look forward from where I am onto the threads, the warp threads there, you can see two sticks that are laid out there. And then if you go up and you see um, where the other warp threads that are wound on top of the loom, you'll also see like pairs of sticks kind of dotted throughout. So if you remember the crosses from the warp frame, those were meant to mark where those sticks that you see there are on the loom. And for weavers, those sticks are used because piña threads will break. Those sticks are used as guides. So when a thread breaks or when multiple threads break, the weavers can find the broken thread and trace it because those guide sticks help keep the piña threads organized. Um,
And are you saying they keep that cross in the whole time? That's a very technical Weaver question, but they keep that
mhm,
cross in the whole time that we
they do.
saw?
They
Okay,
do.
interesting.
Yeah.
In other weaving, they drop it once the yarn or the thread is on the loom.
Oh, yeah. So basically, they only take it out once it gets closer to like the actual weaver.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then, yes. So as the piña is woven, it can be decorated a number of ways. And so one way is through a supplementary weft technique called suksuk. So I think both the Tagalog word and the English phrase probably mean, probably are a little bit obtuse, but supplementary weft technique means, so weft, you all know, you weave back and forth. That's what creates the interlocking textile. Um, when we say supplementary weft technique, it means it's another weft, and so multiple bobbins are used. And so you can see the two bobbins here, but it's supplementary, meaning it is not integral to the woven fabric structure. So you could take those out and the fabric will be a-okay. It will not unravel. And so it's really added in addition, like as you are weaving and it's added in. And so basically, suksuk, this is the specific Filipino supplementary weft technique. Um, Weavers will program different patterns into the loom. And then as weavers weave, they will raise, basically, they group different warp threads together to lift up to create. So basically, the ones that they lift up, um, it will like skip over those threads. And so you can see there are some threads that are, held down by the piña, and then there are some weft threads that are floating. And the floating ones you see are darker. Um, and I really love this photo because you can see sort of like the in process versus the finished design. So basically, what happens is that the weaver, when she's ready to complete the design, she will cut away the floating wefts, so those darker areas. And so the pattern can really emerge from there. And so that's one form of piña decoration. And then another form is embroidery. I don't think the next slide has it. It kind of has it. Actually, it doesn't really have it. Um,
Before we
yeah.
go forward, just Jen, if we could look that again, it's a really time-consuming process because, you have that the supplementary weft or extra weft, sometimes I call it. You've got that white yarn that's going across the thread,
Mhm.
and then you have to stop and change to the other bobbins and add those
Yes.
in just that area. So, and it can get extremely time consuming, just
Yeah.
being as a weaver.
Yeah. And very complicated. It's
Yeah,
very like mathematical, and like weavers, they use graph paper to create these designs and to kind of mark out um, how how to program it into the loom. And so, yes, very complex.
and the programming of the loom is also very complex. So, yeah,
Mhm.
thank you, Jen, for going back. Thank you, Abby.
Yes.
We've got a little bit of a subject break. So, and we have wonderful questions coming in. Shall we take a look at those questions, Jen?
Sure. First, Laura said, not Laura Womack, another Laura, said it looks like a great tool to use before threading the loom. I've never seen one in the US before.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got another weaver, it sounds
Good.
like, who
Yeah.
endorses that that is a special tool.
Good.
We have three other questions. Darlene had asked, is this skill learned at a young age, these artisans?
That's a good question. Yeah, the answer varies. Like one of the weavers I worked with, she learned it when she was 30 from her mother. And then from what I hear across different piña weaving families, the like there are some stories where they say, the piña is so fragile that the weavers didn't want their children anywhere near it. Um, and or like if a child was part of a family that really just scraped the leaves, then every member of the family was part of that process. And so I think it depends on what part of the process your family really is a part of. Like for instance, like one family who sells the thread, hand knots the thread. That's really what they do. They don't weave, and they just apply it to the weavers. Um, and so I would say it really varies depending on sort of the job and the individual person, but it
Okay,
does get passed down through generation.
okay, that's interesting. Some families are knot tires or yarn preparers, and other
Mhm.
families probably grow it. Some
Right.
families weave it.
Exactly.
I've even seen in some places that some families will prepare the warp, and
Mhm.
another group does the weaving with adding the weft. So
Right.
interesting. Okay, what else do we have, Jen?
These are all really interesting. Phoebe asked, how long is the leaf or the leaf portion from which the fibers are harvested?
The leaf is 1 meter long. And so each fiber is 1 meter long.
Abby, do you know how long the warp is?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure, but the width of the loom is around 29 inches. And so they need to basically the warp needs to accommodate that length or that width.
right. I mean, looking at that loom, I think there's several meters on that. That's not a small loom. So there could be 10 to 100 meters on that
Right.
somewhere like, and then also if there are 29 inches, that's a pretty fine yarn. So I could see there being 45, 30, 45, even 60 ends per inch is what we would say. So
Mm,
that's quite a lot of yarns to
right.
just go in the on the warp, right?
Right.
And then the
Right.
weft has to cross that a tiny bit at a time. So that's some seriously labor intensive work. Okay.
And
Yeah,
the last question, is the fabric closer to silk or cotton?
great question.
Mm. I would say like a fine muslin. There is like a softness to it that I think silk, I think of silk as very smooth. Um, muslin is as well, but there's a like a softness to it, and a warmth to the fabric. Like I think silk as cold as well to the touch. Um, but piña, I mean, it's airy, so it doesn't keep you like it's really nice for a temperate climate. But yeah, I would think of it as like a fine muslin.
Hmm. So when I've seen it, the rare occasions when I've been able to see it, I always think it looks like an organza, but it's not, but you're right, it's not as smooth, but it
Mhm.
has that sort of open network to it, right? And they
Yes.
do make a cotton version of that, organdy. Yeah, there you go. That's great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jen.
Yeah.
And then it comes from a plant like a cotton as opposed to silk, which comes from an
Right.
animal, right? Yeah.
Right. And then there are also like with piña, it's usually woven in a plain woven structure, which is one warp over one weft. But then there's another weave structure called renge, and that actually is a more open weave structure. And so, Laura, what you were sharing about like the more open and grid-like um, appearance of the fabric of the cloth, the renge weave structure definitely gives that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm excited to learn about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to include this slide because uh, so in my research, I often am preoccupied thinking about the craft that I forget that like people want to know how does it lay on the body when it's worn. And so this is how the 19th century dress would have been worn. So the shirt is called a barro or a camisa, and it has very flowy leaves. And then also women would wear a shawl called a pañuelo. And so it's a square cloth that's folded diagonally in half, and then it's laid on top. And so it would be worn like this. And I'll say, like, this photograph really was such a watershed moment in my research. It really helped me understand how soft and how light the fabric was to wear. Like, it really was like wearing a cloud. Um, and so you can imagine, like, the fineness of the fiber really corresponds to like that haptic experience of wearing the cloth.
And for the climate, it must be well adapted. It's
Mhm.
being hot and humid.
Right. Yes. Yes. So the Philippine climate is very tropical. And so this fabric really is quite light and is very suitable for that climate.
Okay. And I think we have some more pictures to look of finished products.
Yes. And so these are more historic textiles. So you can see the camisa and the barro. And then the pañuelo, the shawl. I'll mention that the one from the previous image that was in a collection of one of the weavers in the Philippines. And then this example here is at the Rhode Island School of Design Museum. And so they had a recent exhibition on piña that closed in August. And so I was able to see it on the last weekend and just took this photo. I loved how they um, like imitated how it's worn with the shirt on the bottom and the shawl on top, and they even folded it. So I thought that was really beautiful. And if you are able to zoom in, you can look at the designs on the camisa and the shawl. So that is a form of decoration called applique, which is when cloth is like sewn on to the fabric. So that's supplementary. It's not during the weaving process, but that's another way in which piña was decorated during the time.
So would the applique also have been piña?
It would have been cotton.
Cotton. Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. And
Okay.
embroidery would have been done in cotton as well as the sok, the
Right.
supplementary weft.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we can go to the next slide. And so not only were women's clothes worn, but also men's clothes. So the men's shirt is called the barong. And actually, this shirt is still the national dress of the Philippines. It's not always woven with piña, but a really wonderful like inherited quality of the barong is that because piña is really translucent, the shirt is really translucent, and you have to wear like a t-shirt underneath. And like still today, even though you know barongs can be made with synthetic fibers now, they will still maintain that translucency. And so you will always have to wear a t-shirt underneath the barongs. I just think that's a really wonderful like material inheritance to the present day. So yeah, that's really the national dress of like this shirt is really like the national shirt for men in the Philippines, and they wear it for political occasions, for weddings. I have a photo of my dad in a barong and like my uncle when he was married in a barong, maybe not with piña. But this shirt is ubiquitous. But yeah, this example is from the George Washington Textile Museum. I love the sok and the embroidery like down the buttons in the front. I just think it's a delightful example.
It's really beautiful. It's so fine. And it does, I think it's interesting. Here you can really see that very early, super fine
Mhm.
muslin that would have been like the Jane Austen multiple layers, right? I mean, those
Yeah,
skirts were made with like 20 layers of
yeah,
something super fine.
right.
And this is in that category.
Mhm.
Jen, I think we have some questions. Now that we like had such a terrific explanation of where it is and what it is, really look forward to learning more about its significance. Let's hear some of those questions.
Okay, we had two different people ask basically the same question, but the fabric's so fine and the process is so labor intensive. What is the end product for? Is it used decorative, apparel, linen, tablecloth, bedding, curtains? And how do you wash the piña fabric? Is it like cotton?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's mostly used for apparel, really for like special occasions and um, yeah, like fine wear. It's still a very expensive textile to this day. But traditionally, there have also been like handkerchiefs, doilies. Um, there in museums, there are these really large lengths of piña that I like do not know for the life of me what they are. I don't know if they're scarves or like if they're long tablecloths, but those also exist. But it's mostly apparel. And there's a traditional way to wash the piña that uses um, like a Filipino's citrus fruit um, that will like brighten the cloth. But one of the weavers I worked with, she really swears by using Dove to wash, like Dove soap to wash the piña, but you just hand wash it, and then dry it, and then it's all set.
A lot of American weavers like Dove as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, should we put not too fine a point on it? Do you have current market rates, Abby, of
Oh
what
God.
piña is?
Yeah.
I don't mean to throw that at you.
No, no,
Um,
that's a good question. The shirt that I wore in the first slide, that was 400 USD.
yeah, because of the kind of
Yeah.
labor that we're talking about.
Right. And that shirt also, it's not 100% piña. There was also silk in the weft, I believe. And so, yeah, that was you know, you can imagine that like a pure piña shirt is very expensive.
So when we think about silk, and a lot of people use silk, silk is very specifically animal fiber, an insect fiber. But a lot of people use silk to talk about an expensive fiber, like in Myanmar, they talk about lotus silk,
Mhm.
when it really is a plant fiber. It's not technically a silk, but that's because we really think of silk as an expensive material. But what you're saying is that silk is cheaper and used to extend the value of that piña so that it makes the silk is less costly and therefore makes
Yes.
the piña more affordable.
Yes, that's correct. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, okay, Jen, do we have more questions?
We do. Uh, I have to laugh. These people are, think they're planning together. Because two different people asked about at what point is the textile dyed and is the fabric ever dyed, not just the suk-suk. So,
Yes.
Very
Um,
good.
that's a good question. So it's mostly undyed. Um, and but I know that there are some weavers who experiment with dyeing the fabric with natural dyes in the Philippines. So for instance, the image where I'm wearing the historic textiles, that red shawl was made with a coconut, but it creates like a red dye. Um, and yeah, so it's not common, but it's done. Yeah, it's done, but it is rare. And it's usually the fabric with once the fabric is woven, then it's dyed. So the yarns aren't dyed
Uh, did you
like
say
before.
coconut makes a red dye?
Hmm.
Interesting. I would imagine, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, like I've seen this in other traditions as well, where they don't dye the fabric, the fiber, because they want you to know what it is. Because if you're spending that much money, you don't want to color it and confuse people. You want people to know you're wearing piña.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that's true
That's a
in the
good question.
Philippines.
Yeah. I honestly I don't know that off the top of my head. I think part of it also is like I don't think piña takes color well, even with a mordant. And so I think that's also part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jen, I don't know if we have more questions, but you just had that wonderful picture of Abby and the embroidered piña. Abby, are you wearing piña in that picture?
I am. Yes.
That is such a beautiful garment. I
Thank
didn't
you.
even put it together.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a special garment.
Yes. And it's like it's in that camisa like butterfly sleeve
Okay.
silhouette that was traditionally made.
Which again requires a lot of fabric, and so it's
Mhm.
a display object. So maybe we should talk a little bit about the importance, the significance of piña in culture and about your thesis on it.
Yeah. So wow. That's a big question.
Yes,
One that
sorry
I
about
love.
that.
So actually my research has been largely on really this question of what is piña. When you go to museums in the US that have piña collections, sometimes the material is confused for cotton or silk and or like a fine linen. And I really kept coming across that. And when I talked to other scholars of piña, they also mentioned that that was a issue that they came across and no one really ventured into defining piña. Like people know that it's a fabric made with pineapple leaf fibers, but what does that really mean? Like, can you visually trace it? And like, what does it actually feel like? And, you know, can we have an essay on that sort of thing? And so that was basically what my thesis answered. But, I tied in craft. And so that's why I really delved into the craft of piña. Um, but I think in doing that research, um, piña is really known as a very expensive fabric for the elite. But when you go to the province where this is woven, it's really just part of the weavers' everyday lives. It's almost ordinary, because it's a part of their daily rhythms. It's passed down from generation to generation. And so I would say in doing my research specifically with piña craft, there you just get a more um, like not ordinary is not the right word, but I think just very quiet and unassuming practice. And but then also really profound in knowing that it was like many textile traditions in the Philippines really passed down from generation to generation.
And are the people who are producing piña, the different groups of people from the weavers, the yarn makers, are they able to wear piña? Because a lot of times weaver groups will, they can't afford to keep it
Mhm.
for themselves because it's such a high value item.
Right. That is a very similar mindset that they have. I think because that this is their livelihood, it feels yeah, it's like we should be selling it sort of thing. Which isn't to say they don't own piña, they definitely do. Um, but yeah, they would, they make it to sell it basically.
Right. Yeah. Good. Okay. And Jen, do we have some more questions?
We do. Um, Allison asked, who are the weavers? Is it everyone or typically men or women?
That's a good question. It's definitely everyone. Um, it is known, I think definitely women weave it more, passed down from mother to daughter, or aunt to niece, etc. But they're definitely I don't know the ratio specifically, but when I was there, there were a handful of men who were also weaving piña, and involved in the process.
All right, good.
One other question was, what proportion of the crop is used for making cloth compared with fruit?
Oh, a portion of the yeah. So basically, the all the leaves can be used. The leaves from the bush can be used for the cloth, and then you can harvest the fruit and eat it. It tastes quite good. It tastes like a regular pineapple. But yeah, so you can eat the fruit. You could even replant the crown to plant a new pineapple plant. Um, so yeah, I would. That's the ratio.
Okay. And we've got another question come in, and then I've got a question again.
Um, how big is the production of piña fabric in the Philippines? Is it growing or decreasing?
That's a yeah. It's growing in some ways. There have been a lot of and there have been a lot of conditions that have allowed it to thrive. So yeah, some of these weaving families have started shops that are outside of their province and in Manila, and they can sell like ready to wear clothes. So that's how I purchased my blouse. But I think with every generation, there are definitely challenges of how are we going to pass this on? Like, how will we move this textile tradition forward? Um, and so, yeah, I would say it is increasing, but then there are still, there still needs to be effort put in.
And the relevance for young people. I mean, sometimes young people are turning to, fashion trends and
Mhm.
away from tradition. What's that like for piña in the Philippines?
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge because piña is associated with special events. There is a challenge of how do we make piña, suitable for daily wear, and like what are the garments that reflect that? And so that's definitely a challenge. And I know that a lot. And then I would say there are some like just fashion houses or clothing ateliers that are sourcing piña fabric into their own garments, and those garments may not be for special occasions. Those might be daily wear. So that's like a way that piña can be incorporated into um, like a different set of clothing. But yeah, no, that's definitely a challenge for sure.
Yeah. I think we've got more questions coming in. Keep them going. We really appreciate your participation.
I think you kind of answered this. Is piña fabric ever made into bolts, and has it gotten into the designer trade?
That's a great
Yes, yes,
question. Allison, thank you so much.
yes, they are made into bolts.
So can you buy a bolt of piña? Sounds very expensive.
It is expensive, but yes, like when I was there in January, like the weavers that I was with, they had just finished a bolt that was commissioned for them.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned the word craft a lot, Abby, and you and I talked about this a little bit, and I think it's just something worth repeating. Here we are on Art Talk talking about a craft of textiles. Is this an art? Does it have a place for it?
Yeah, I mean, I might be biased, but I say so, yes. Um, yeah, but I mean, I was reflecting on this, but even in my undergraduate degree, I had courses in textile art history, and so I felt like there was never an opportunity for me to think otherwise, and it wasn't until, like, graduate school when I met people that said, "Oh, it's so cool that you think textile is art," and I said, "What do you mean?" Like, it's always been, and I would say even the weavers there, like, really I think when you see how ubiquitous the textile tradition is and the ways of expression like, the ways that artisans express themselves through their textiles, it's to me, it's undeniable.
Yeah. And I think that, it's funny how there are trends in different professional disciplines. And I think for a while, textiles weren't considered art. They were considered craft. And I know textile artists who have been challenged in entering art shows. But of course, textiles, the tapestries hang in the Met Museum, right? And
Mhm,
that was the art of kings. And now we're seeing again textiles coming into, MoMA just had a big exhibit
mm,
on textiles, including the work of Annie Albers,
mm,
who, when she went to Bauhaus, she wanted to be a painter. And they said, well, you're a woman, you have to be a textile, you have to be a weaver. You can't be an artist. And now
mm,
she hangs at MoMA.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's amazing to see yeah, I think I mean, I've been seeing it in scholarship too, like, I feel like there is a moment we're in a moment where textiles are really getting a lot of focus, and getting that recognition. Definitely there's still I think with craft at large, there's still, that divide of what is craft art, but I mean, maybe I'm just an optimist, but it's yeah, I am thankful for that we are in more of that, like, academic moment, artistic moment where, um, we see those tables turned.
Yeah. That's great. I think we've got another question, maybe a comment, Jen, before we go.
Yeah, one last question. Have you seen a mechanical process to produce piña, or is it solely made by hand?
That is a great question. The only mechanical process that I saw was so to make those bobbins, that's like to like spin it. Basically, it was like an electric spindle to create the bobbin. Otherwise, everything else is by hand, has been by hand, and it's because the fiber is so fine that to mechanize it, it would, there's just too much variability um, that a human needs to do it.
All right. Abby Lua, thank you so much for joining us on Art Talk.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all for joining.
And thank you. I add my thanks to Abby. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us again on October 17th for a conversation with Chuck Fisher, whose tableau reliefs break the plane of two-dimensional art. His work is in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian's Cooper Hewitt Museum and the Museum of American History, and he's in the artist book section of the Library of Congress. So we look forward to that conversation. Join us again. Jen McHugh is our technical director.
Good night, everybody.
And Deanna Bocher is our content producer. I'm Laura Womack. Good night.